morning to everyone. I understand we are quite a few people listening to this event today. First word of thanks for all the work that ETF is doing on vocational excellence. You've been our strategic partner, I would say, in developing the concept and extending what we are doing in Europe to your partner countries. A very special thank you to Georgios for all the work he has been doing in the last years in this respect, and also, of course, to Manuela Prina now that is taking this challenge to the heart. And I see all the enthusiasm of the colleagues of ETF. Really, thank you, not only to Georgios and Manuela, but all the team that is working on this. So I would like to start by if you can put the presentation in the meantime. I'd like to start by, telling you all the people that are participating outside of Europe, from outside Europe, that you are really pioneers in a new way of thinking about vocational excellence, or modernizing vocational excellence. Manuela mentioned quite a few times the word shaping the future and producing meaningful results. And I think this really encapsulates what we are trying to do with the Vocational Excellence initiative. So basically, we're trying to shape the future of not only providing society with the skill that we need in order to progress collectively in a way that serves the interests both of the company, society, and the individual. So we are, with Vocational Excellence, you are really pioneers in the sense that you are experimenting with new approaches, and I'd really like to congratulate you for the courage to do so. In the next few minutes, I'll try to just give you an overview of what we are doing in Europe in terms of policy, in terms of funding, and then at the end, I'll say how this links with you and what are the opportunities for cooperation between European member states and ETF partner countries in the future. So, if we can go to the next slide, please. In the new Commission has been very active in the field of skills. We've been President von der Leyen has from the beginning said that we need to equip people with the skills for the digital and the green transitions. And there's been a lot of initiatives in the last few months. I will just mention 3 of them. One of them is the skills agenda, which among the various actions it has, 12 actions in total. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through all of them, but just tell you this idea of anticipating future skill needs, of being capable of translating that into curricula and bringing all the partners together. I think this idea of understanding the education and training system by itself cannot respond to the challenges of a rapidly changing world. It is not possible. Some years ago, because the changes were rather slow, the education system had time to adapt to it. Now the change is so fast, and COVID crisis exposed it in a very clear way in what regards digital needs for digital skills. That the speed, the pace of change is so fast that the education system needs to cooperate with companies, with public employment services, regional development authorities. We have to bring all the partners together so that collectively we understand what society and business needs and how the education system can rapidly adapt to it. So there's no space for waiting for someone bright in the ministry to come up with the right ideas. We really have to be active members of the regions, of the places where we live and interact with each other. And the skills agenda sort of encapsulates this idea and puts the focus on the important need for upskilling and reskilling of the adults as well. So not only focusing on the young people, but also on the adults. Can we go to the next slide, please? The European education area, which was adopted last year in September as well, gives an idea essentially not only of what we should do in Europe in order to modernize vocational education and training in general, not only that, but also higher education, schools, and how all these sectors interact with each other. But it also has one of its strategic dimensions, the geopolitical dimension, which is basically has also to do with the internationalization of education and training. Europe understanding that just looking at ourselves, we are not understanding what is going on in the world, and we need to cooperate with countries like the ones where the ETF works, so that together we can share experiences and we can modernize vocational education and training and education in general, to respond to what are societal and individual needs. Next slide, please. And following this flow of political initiatives, I would say that the most important for our sector in vocational education and training is the recommendation that was adopted by the member states on the 24th of November last year, which equips VET and provides a general framework and vision, strategic vision of how we should cooperate in Europe in terms of modernizing vocational education and training. So making sure that that curricula is there to provide the people, be they young or adults, with the skills for the green and digital transitions. It focuses on a learner-centered approach, understanding that people have different ways of interacting with the education system. So we have to make it flexible so that people that are working on the labor market can have access to upskilling and reskilling, that young people can interact with the system at various phases of their lives as well. And of course, with a big focus on the job training, on work-based learning, ensuring that people don't go to the education system and get out of the VET system with a qualification, but never had a real experience in a company. This is crucial, and that's why we have also a target for that. And of course, we also have a very important element which leads with you, which is the increasing the mobility of students, and in particular, also increasing the mobility not only within Europe, but also with countries throughout the world. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, having set the political scenario, if you want, of what has been the development in the last 6 months, I would like to, although most of you are very familiar with the Centers of Vocational Excellence, just to mention that this is really, I think, the first time we have an initiative that doesn't only look at one aspect, because quite often when we have challenges, we are looking at quality assurance, or we are looking at effectiveness of that, and that's why we had a council recommendation on quality assurance, then we had one on credit systems, we had one on apprenticeships. So usually we go on a piecemeal approach, and for the first time, we have an initiative that really looks at the various aspects of vocational training, and it does it by trying to make sure that the Centers of Vocational Excellence are serving the local communities where they are installed, looking at what are the regional development objectives, looking at what are smart specialization strategies in certain regions, cluster strategies, industrial clusters, and making sure that that is attached and in synchrony with what are the needs of the economy and society in general. And of course, this in fact, what I was saying in the beginning, that we cannot do it. VET cannot do it alone. We have to reach out to universities, to research centers, to companies, chambers, to trade unions, to policymakers, and really have an approach which looks at what is needed around where we are and can be, and that is a proactive contributor to that change. Next slide, please. In order to pursue this objective, with the support of the Erasmus program, we have launched in the last 2 years 2 sets of calls for pilot projects. This is because while the ETF and the European Commission were developing the concept, we were not sure whether we were doing everything right. And we wanted to know, how is the market interpreting this initiative? How are the VET centers, how are the companies understanding it? So we launched these pilot calls to see what kind of projects were we attracting. Were they really what we wanted them to do, or were they coming up with new ideas that we should encapsulate? And in fact, we had 5 projects that we financed in 2019, pilot projects, that taught us a lot. They showed us that there were things that we were not really understanding that the market needed, and we adapted it. And in the second call we had in 2020, you have the 7 projects that we supported in 2020 and the 5 projects we supported in 2019. And you have the web links if you want to go and find more information on these pilot projects. But in 2020, I was saying, we already adapted to what we learned from 2019. And these 12 projects are sort of innovators in Europe because they are pilot projects. They are working on something which is completely new. But what they did was extremely important for us because it allowed us now for the next programming period, for the next 7 years, to have a design of vocational excellence, which I think fits with what they were asking us to do. So if we can go to the next slide, please, to tell you that because of these pilot projects, we managed in the new Erasmus program for the first time to have a specific action just on centers of vocational excellence. So in the next 7 years, the Council and the European Parliament gave this initiative 400 million euros for the next 7 years. It's a significant amount of money. It will allow us to finance 100 platforms of vocational excellence. And when I'm meaning platforms, I'm talking about vet centers in Europe, in the US, in Belarus, all over the world that want to get together with what we are doing in Europe. They can do it with the support of Erasmus. So this will be financing project with a duration of 4 years, with a budget of 4 million. Sorry, the budget of the project itself is 5 million. 4 million euros are given by Erasmus Plus as grants to support this. And I think the important difference to what was the pilot project is that now we can accept partners from all over the world. And if those partners prove that they bring an essential added value to the project, we will also co-finance the parts of partners coming from Ukraine, from Zimbabwe or Kenya, wherever it is. But of course, you know, it's European money. Essentially, it's for European partners. But whenever we have partners from outside Europe that bring an added value to the project, they can also be financed. I think this is quite important to say. To finalize, I always tend to talk a little bit too much. I'm sorry, Daria. The next steps, we're going to publish the Erasmus Fall 2021 next month. Hopefully, there's still some delay. We don't know if it will be in April or May, but it will probably be in April. There will be an information session on this call organized by the executive agency and the European Commission. And there will also be a novelty, which is the establishment of a community of practice on vocational excellence, which will be launched on the 21st and 22nd of June 2021. This is being organized by our Dutch and Spanish friends, and it is going to take place in June, as I said, in the Basque Country. The last thing I wanted to mention is that we want not only to finance these centers of vocational excellence, but we also want to provide support services with new research, with tools, with individualized possibility of providing expertise to those that want to engage in vocational excellence. We are working with our joint research center in order to provide these support services, which we hope will be fully running in 2021. So Daria, sorry for taking a little bit too long, but this is what I wanted to share with you, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Joao. Actually, this was the perfect presentation because we discussed about 10 minutes and these were 10 minutes. So amazing, because this leaves some time for discussion now. I invite again all the participants to share their questions and comments in writing in the respective chats. We'll pass them on to the speakers. I know that now Manuela has got a question for you, Joao. So Manuela, please.
So I ask Joao if he wants the easy one or the complicated one.
Well, it doesn't matter. There's never complicated questions. Only a stupid answer, maybe. But that's something we'll see.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Joao. I think actually during your presentation there were some sound issues. So
I'm sorry.
I think it's important maybe just to take a minute to repeat a couple of concepts that I think are important. And if you think about partner countries, which is really the area of work of the ETF and the primary, let's say, focus of the ENE network, even if we have many members from EU member states and joining even more, if you look forward to excellence and to what the European Union is doing on the future agenda, what role partner countries play in this picture, and what are the, let's say, priorities that you see coming on the agenda for the coming years, both in terms of, let's say, thematic domains and issues we should focus on, but also in terms of actions and joint actions. Some of those things you have covered, but because there were those sound breaks, I think it's good if we repeat them briefly.
Yeah.
Thank you, João.
1 minute, João, because then we have another.
Okay. I would say, responding very quickly, that COVID has exposed the big challenge of digitalization we have for vocational education and training, not only in terms of the learners' capacities and skills to do it, the way we organize that, the way we teach and we learn. I think the green and the digital transitions are, I would say, the main themes on which we will possibly cooperate in the next few years, but not excluding other topics. And I think that the main idea of the platforms of vocational excellence and the way we want to interact with the ETF partner countries and also beyond ETF partner countries is understanding that the complexity of the world today is of such a dimension that nobody in isolation can understand what is going on. We need to cooperate with Australia. We need to learn of what is being done in a certain vocational center in Zimbabwe, because they are looking at ways of empowering young people to be entrepreneurs, to create their own companies. I think we all have to learn from each other. And it's a recognition of being humble that Europe understands that alone we cannot do it. We need to interact with what is being done outside. And that's why we count so much on the ETF with all your expertise outside Europe to help us achieve this objective.
Thank you very much, João, and also thanks to Manuela for her question. We have 1 minute and a half left, and there's a question by Jakob Zieber. Can you give an example what essential added value means for non-Erasmus Plus countries to take part in a COVE project? João.
Sure. Okay, so the idea is this. Let's take the aeronautics sector, just to give you an example. There are many countries outside Europe, Brazil, Ukraine, others, that are very good in the aeronautics sector. Maybe they have simulators, they have ways of teaching, they have new curricula, which can benefit the European Vocational Excellence Initiative. So European players that want to engage with countries outside Europe, not just because we want to save the world, because that's the way of, the kind of project we are doing in development policy. This is more. This is trying to bring the very best without limiting it to Europe. If there is a vocational center outside that has an expertise in the way they are promoting entrepreneurship, in the way they are creating innovation hubs, in the way they are engaged in applied research, if they can contribute to what we are doing in Europe, and of course also benefit from what we're doing, because then it wouldn't make sense that someone from Ukraine wants to just contribute to what we are doing. They also want to learn. They want to learn from the good practices on business education partnerships that the Netherlands has, or on good initiatives on entrepreneurship that the Basque country has. So it's a win-win situation. But of course, we don't want through the vocational excellence or through Erasmus Plus, because that's the work of DEVCO. But with Erasmus Plus, it's really promoting excellence and sharing the very best we have in Europe with the very best we have outside Europe, so that we can collectively learn from each other and improve the way we are doing business in the vocational education and training sector. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you so much, João. Actually, there is one last, and we have 30 seconds. Let's see if you manage. Hilary Umbua, does the EU funding include funding for infrastructural development for new planned VTP, not in existence yet, but planned for rural areas?
No, unfortunately not. The Erasmus program, as you know, can finance everything which is development of curricula, development of the networks, coming up with new methodologies of working, providing the right platforms for mobility to exist, for example, but we do not finance infrastructure. That would have to be in cases of countries outside Europe through the development policy of DEVCO, or in Europe with the other funds like the structural funds, ERDF, and so on. And just, sorry, Dario, just one last note to mention, one thing I wanted to tell you. One of the important novelties of Erasmus Plus is not only of opening the centers of vocational excellence to the world, but also mobility of vet learners and of teachers to the world. So as from this year, it will be possible that we send learners from Europe to any country in the world. So it is open for partnerships between vet centers from any country in the world with vet centers in Europe, and companies as well, of course. And we will also have the possibility, not in 2021, but as from 2022, to finance with Erasmus Plus some incoming mobility. So a learner coming from South Africa into Europe, if it is based on the partnerships between a vet center in Europe and one in South Africa, it will be possible to co-finance some incoming mobility of learners from other countries into Europe as well, under the Erasmus flag.